Well, the African story, first in terms of growth, has been a very good one. I mean, if you look over the last 10 years, the rate has grown between 4 and 6% a year, even through the economic crisis. At that point, it dipped a little bit toward 4, but generally 4 to 6% growth is fairly solid growth. Now, when you're turning to trade, the growth is growing, but it's still small. So if you look at Africa, it's about 3.5% of the total world trade. That's all there is, but it is growing. It is a growing story. The issue in Africa is there's two kinds of trade. One is exporting to Europe, exporting to the United States, and so forth, versus the regional trade amongst each other. Both sides are growing, but you'll see that the regional trade is still quite small. So in the fairing, it's a good story, but it's still it's the little engine that could. We're still at the little engine stage. Once we move beyond that, now the question is, what about growth and trade? Now, growth and trade go together. They're interlinked. Trade is all about export value addition growth, export trade. So the goods must have a value addition element. More of that value addition means more jobs. So there the story is improving, but it's still too resource-based. When you turn down to the question is, well, how can we improve it? One of the key ingredients for that growth is infrastructure. And what I mean is transport infrastructure. And the keys to that is one of the key challenges that Africa faces. Okay. Before you can get to the challenges, the first question is, what is infrastructure, transport infrastructure? There are two kinds of transport infrastructure. One is hard and the other is soft. Now, we're talking about hard, we're talking about the concrete, we're talking about the tar and all of that. The soft is more the legal processes. Now, when you turn and looking at the hard infrastructure, there are different kinds of that as well. So you're looking at road, rail, airport, and shipping, putting emphasis on the first two. When you're looking at that transport infrastructure, that's where the challenge is. Africa doesn't have many roads. It doesn't have many rail. A lot of those rails are dating back to the 70s. A lot of them are dating back to the colonial era. So those things have to be upgraded. But it's not enough just to upgrade roads and build a road. You've got to do more than that, and you've got to give it support. And what kind of support you need? One, you have to maintain it. So a lot of times there's a lot of projects where they're not maintained. Second is they have to be coordinated. So you can build a great highway, but if your urban infrastructure can't handle the inflow, you have a problem within the city. So that coordination is very, very important. The other issue to look at is the soft infrastructure, as I said, the legal, the regulatory, the other support processes. Now, in Africa, there are two sorts of challenges. One is the laws themselves. You'll find that a lot of times rules are not meant to encourage trade. They're often actually trying to protect. So that form of protectionism comes through in high tariffs and very slow procedures for entry. So if you look at the soft infrastructure, you'll see that most companies complain more about tariffs and clearing and all of that than in terms of the actual infrastructure itself. In terms of Africa, it's about 3 times as long. It's about 38 days to get things out of the country, whereas in Europe, it's about 12 days. It's a big difference. So when the infrastructure itself, you have to look at the regulations, you have to look at all of that, and that makes it very, very difficult. The other place is not having enough service support, like freight forwarders and all of that. Those are the key challenges, I would say. I think the key thing for Africa is to move away from a grandiose approach toward a bottom-up approach. It's important to have a theme, but ultimately you have to have a bottom-up approach, one step at a time. So I would build each country's structure one corridor at a time. And when I mean a corridor, it's not enough to just build a road or a rail, but you've got to have all the connecting links all the way through the chain, and you have to have all the support. Each road is a business, or at least a business support. And so that means road maintenance, it means all of those connections. The other thing too is, again, it should fit with the country's overall economic goals. So what is the country trying to achieve? What is its comparative advantage? And as long as it fits within that, you have a pilot project that works. Once you have one pilot, you can move on to the second. That's the way I would go at it. The other point to mention is there are no magic tricks. Now, politicians all around the world like magic tricks. They like announcements. One of them is often the special economic zone. The special economic zone is a special area of special rules. That's all it is. So all of your tariffs are lowered, all of the special rules are eliminated. The problem is when those are done, they become isolated from the rest of the country. It's important that if you try a magic trick, it fits within part of the overall plan. So a special economic zone can work, but it's got to, again, be part of that whole. And the last thing is consistency. It doesn't help to have one policy one year and another policy another year. You have to have patience. And what you need to do is build it over a 10 to 20-year period. That's how the East Asians did it. And that means each step moves you further along the way. And before you know it, the advance becomes quite solid and quite fast.